Welcome back to Lost Legacies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sam.
Okay, Sam, first off, this episode has been kind of tricky to record. It's been a week and a half since you watched it. Do you remember anything about it?
I remember we're watching Lost.
All right. Well, I guess you're not lost yet. Before we jump in, what's new? What are you watching, reading, listening to?
Oh, geez. Well, I know this is probably not going to air until after Halloween, but I'm listening to a lot of Halloween playlists. My friends are making some. I made one. Just really getting into the spooky season vibe. And currently, I am 2 chapters into a romance novel. Yeah. It's One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Yes, Casey McQuiston. And it's good. It's really good. I would recommend just kind of going in blind because the back of the book kind of does give kind of like, I don't know if it's like a spoiler, but it just kind of like tells you what's happening like up front. But yeah, I'm 2 chapters in and I really dig it. It's really fun. It's cute. This is like the first real romance book that I'm reading. And it's fun. I like it.
Nice. And speaking of Halloween, if you're listening to this and you didn't listen to last week's episode,
what's wrong with you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I understand, life gets in the way and stuff. I don't want to alienate our listeners, Sam. However, how dare you? That was our Halloween special. You should have listened to that one instead of this one. So go back and listen to it because it's fun. Basically, Sam sits down with our friends Mickey and Amy, and they talk all things horror movies. And I try and figure out which of those 3 people, Amy, Mickey, and my brother, are the ultimate, what did I call it? Like Lost Legacies horror connoisseur person, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm. And I think the winner may surprise you. I was surprised, but not really. When actually not really. But it was a good race. I think all 3 of y'all were like really neck and neck through the whole episode.
Yeah.
So being as someone who's not really interested in the horror genre, I was very entertained by the discussion and also trying to figure out who's going to win my competition that I literally made up like on the spot. The competitive edge kept me tuned in. I don't know. Yeah, so go check it out. As for me, I just like between the last episode and this one, I watched the first season of Warrior. Warrior is currently streaming on HBO Max. It was originally what's the Cinemax? It was originally a Cinemax show.
Cinemax.
And it's the last show they made that was original content.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. After Strike Back ended, they basically announced that they weren't doing any more original content. And Warrior was already like in production. So they're like, this is going to be our last one. So as of now, I think Cinemax is done for.
Oh, wow.
I don't think it's around anymore. Because everyone, the fate of Warrior was up in the air. It got 2 seasons, then it was up in the air. Now it's on HBO Max, and it looks like it's exclusive. So season 3 will be coming HBO Max 2022. We're hoping. I don't know if they've actually announced the date yet. I don't even know if they're filming it yet. So it might be longer. But anyway, it's the whole story is about Chinese immigrants coming into San Francisco, post Civil War. So you just have a lot of, tell me if this sounds familiar, economies in the pits. You have a bunch of hardworking Americans losing their jobs and getting angry because they're losing it to any kind of immigrant, especially this show because it focuses on Chinese. So they're angry at the Chinese immigrants because it's essentially slave labor. So they're paying them next to nothing. So the Chinese are getting the jobs over everyone else. It's mostly Irish. But instead of going after the man, they go after the little guys, the immigrants, And in the whole process, you just learn about the world and the culture and how these gangs evolved and essentially became these like criminal empires, and there's all this fighting. And it's all based off of the writings of Bruce Lee. This was a show he wanted to make back in the day and star as the lead, but the studios didn't want to give him his own show because of his accent.
Messed up.
So they took the concept, bastardized it, and turned it into kung fu.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the origins of kung fu.
That sucks.
Yeah, it does. And I don't know the actor, but the guy that got to play the lead, just everyone in the show is fantastic. But he is great. He's a phenomenal fighter. He channels just enough of like the Bruce Lee swagger. You know, it's not a copycat. It's just a nice little nod, and it's not overdone either. It's just every now and then you see like Bruce Lee kind of coming in through his fights, and like the little smirks he makes. I'm like, that was good. So if you want an action show, this is the one. If you want a historical drama, this is the one. If you want, I don't know, something gritty but also fun, this is the one. Phenomenal costumes. Oh my God, this is the one. The set, like, I don't know where they filmed it. My theory is they built a small town because like these sets and stuff is just too big, and the camera techniques they use, I'm like, this is a small town that they're filming in. It's not Chinatown that they found somewhere. Like they had to build this. And it's incredible. So, and last thing I'll say is they even have a Western episode, which is one of the coolest things I've seen on television this year. Chinese cowboys. It's just awesome, dude. I loved it. Now the show's it's been on, like I said, it's already been 2 seasons, so it's not a 2021 show, but still go check it out. As for that, I think it's time to get lost. We're talking about season 2, episode 19, S.O.S. What does S.O.S. stand for? I don't know. I feel like I used to know. A lot of people think that the distress signal is an abbreviation for save our souls or save our ship. But in reality, it's just a continuous Morse code string. They don't actually stand for anything. The signal isn't really supposed to be 3 individual letters. It's just continuous Morse code, 3 dashes and 3 dots, all run together with no spaces, full stops. That's interesting. There's a whole article here I found on mentalfloss.com. Go check it out. But yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense because it never really stops. SOS is supposed to keep going. So anyway, season 2, episode 19, SOS. As Bernard attempts to spur the survivors into trying to get themselves rescued, Rose believes that he is merely giving them false hope. Meanwhile, in the hatch, Jack decides to head to the line and offer the others a trade. Henry Gale for Walt. So what do you think? Do you remember any of that stuff that I just said?
Yeah. I remember it. I remember most of it. I liked it. I liked this episode. What was the one? Was the Hurley one before this one?
Yes. Dave.
Yeah.
I think bastard.
I think that one was a much stronger episode than this one. Mostly this was just cool because, we get to see Bernard and Rose. They get to have flashbacks. And I like that. They're kind of similar to like Sun and Jin in that like their flashbacks are like together.
Even though it wasn't one-sided, it was both sides.
It was both sides because it's when like we first meet them, when he proposes, when they go on their trip. So I liked it. But I do feel like this episode, like it's supposed to be Bernard's episode, and we're just kind of like Bernard gets the shaft, like he's the B plot essentially in this episode that's mostly about Jack going off, to the others.
Well, I feel like this episode was only B plots. I kind of think that was the problem. I feel like even
I'll
with
agree with that.
Jack's journey, like there are a lot of moments where that's not happening on screen.
Mhm.
Bernard does get a lot of screen time, but yeah, I think this is an episode where there really is no A plot. It's just the B plot,
Mhm.
or several. There's like a B and C plot, but yeah, there was nothing to really like tie everything together or just like keep driving it forward. Basically, what it was a filler episode.
Yeah.
I think everything with Jack dealing with Henry Gale, it had to happen, but we've seen this on Lost before. It's like, okay, this has to happen. We can't do this off camera. So we'll just show it. We'll just kind of shove it in this episode or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of obvious that they needed, basically, spoiler alert. Well, not really, but let's just jump to the end. At the very end, Jack and Kate are waiting at the line, waiting to get some kind of reply back from the others because they want to trade Henry Gale for Walt. But instead, someone comes running out with a torch and then passes out in front of them, and it turns out it's Michael.
Mm-hmm.
So it really felt like we needed to get Michael back somehow. And this was kind of like, you could have attached that ending to any episode.
Mm-hmm.
They just needed to get across the idea that Jack wanted to do a trade.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it felt like we had to see it. I just wish they would have made it more exciting somehow.
Yeah.
But as for Rose and Bernard, let's talk about their flashbacks.
Super cute. I love
Super
them.
cute. I love the first one because they're bickering and fighting just like they are on the island,
Mm-hmm.
except we don't realize it until halfway through the scene. They just met.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's so funny. I'm like, that's cool because they're already bickering like a married couple.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they reveal that they just met, and that's Rose kind of gets the courage to ask him out for a coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and then the rest is history. Yeah. So what do you think about these flashbacks? I thought it was cute. I thought it kind of ties into the main island story, but not.
Yeah, like it doesn't. And it's kind of interesting because I was also thinking about this, about how Lost doesn't feel like it's one of those shows where it like, well, I mean, obviously Lost isn't one of those shows where it like gives you answers, but it also feels like it doesn't want to commit to being like, oh, we're a sci-fi or like we're a fantasy, or anything like that. Like, so it's interesting because Bernard takes Rose to Africa to basically
Australia.
meet like Australia to meet like a healer,
Mm-hmm.
so that he could heal her from her cancer. And it was kind of interesting, like how much, I don't know if you want to call it world building, but it's like it was interesting, like how much detail they put into that one scene. It's the last flashback. It's so small,
Mm-hmm.
and like Rose walks in and there's all these people's like crutches just hanging from the ceiling and on the walls. There's people's wheelchairs. There's all of these pictures and letters and testimonies, all this stuff. And it's like, and it was such an interesting concept. And we meet the guy. He touches Rose, says he can't heal her, and that's basically it. Like, and we take it at face value. And it was kind of interesting to me. It's like, oh, okay. Like Rose believes in this, but she already knows that there's nothing he can do. Like she's a spiritual person, but like she already knows that like, no, like this isn't going to work.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that she believes in him because she's like yelling at Bernard, like, because let's face it, Bernard fell for what seems like a scam. $10,000 donation just to set up this interview,
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff, and then
Although to be fair, the guy was gonna give her the $10,000 back.
Yeah, you see, and I think that's kind of the key too. I never got the idea that she believed it.
Mm.
I think she knew she was walking into like a quack's office or something, you know.
Mm.
But I don't think it was just in and out like you said at all. I think it was very kind of revealing because like the guy's whole demeanor changed after he quote unquote like read her or felt her or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's when he says, I can't help you. But it's because she even asks him, how does this work? And he says like he doesn't really have powers, but there's certain spots on the planet that do.
Mm-hmm.
And he can just kind of channel it and help pass it on to people.
Mm-hmm.
So afterwards he says, I can't help you, or but you can be helped. You just need to find the right place. And she's just thinking like, yeah, this guy's a quack. It didn't work. And she tells him like, tell my husband it worked. Keep the money. Just let him believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And this really mirrors Claire's story and the psychic, where he had a more like a visual reaction, like, whoa, like he like freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's the one who pays for her to get on the plane. Yeah, so this guy felt something, but I also like what he said about, you know, there are different places on the planet that have this energy. This isn't your place.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because then as the episode goes on, the big reveal at the end. Well, I guess so the whole episode, Bernard's trying to get people to build a sign that says SOS on the beach out of rocks, and like no one's really motivated to help him. One, he's kind of being like very brash about it, but two, and he's not wrong. I mean, they have kind of given up on trying to get rescued. They're getting comfortable, or like Jin's the last one they're helping him, but Jin knows that this island is giving him and son a miracle baby.
Mm-hmm.
So we never really get into like Jin's spiritual beliefs or anything, but he thinks this is a miracle because of this island.
Mm-hmm.
So for whatever reason, no one wants to help Bernard, and Rose is adamantly against it. But then that's when she reveals that she's healed in this place.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this combination because Bernard is such a character who he's like, I need proof. I need to see it. And she's like, no, like, look, if you live with something like this, you know when something's there that shouldn't be, or when something like that is gone.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, it's gone. I'm cured here. And she has a talk with Locke. Very, very roundabout. They don't really bring any of this stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
But they're basically talking about how they're better in this place. And she even asked Locke how long it's going to take it for his leg to heal. And he says something like, when Doc says it's going to take a couple of weeks. And she replies, but you and I both know it won't take that long.
Mm-hmm.
Again, geez, here I am recapping everything. I'm really trying not to, but like it's really pivotal. Like the whole story kind of revolved around those reveals, those twists, I guess, because then at the end we see the flashback of Rose at the airport, and she drops her medication, and who helps? Locke. He rolls up in his wheelchair, and he hands the medicine to her. Mm-hmm. So she knows about Locke. He was in the wheelchair. I don't think anyone on that island knows other than him.
Yeah,
you know, he hasn't told anyone. So I don't know. I mean, I think from a writing perspective, it was there. The strings were there. It was connected. I think it did feel very B plot heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Like there wasn't one thread kind of moving the whole episode forward.
Which I guess is to kind of be expected, you know, with like we're getting down to the wire now, you know, to like, you know, we're close to the season finale. So, you know, there is bound to be, because like you could say the same thing about the last episode, you know, like it doesn't really move the plot forward,
Right.
So yeah, it's like it's not like we're in a weird like slog or anything. It's just like,
Mhm.
yeah, this is the point of the story where it's like, okay, we need to sort of just like have space before we get
Mhm.
to our finale. So
Yeah.
yeah, like it's a good episode. It's well written. Of course, everybody's acting. They're doing great. But yeah, that's kind of it. It's a lost episode.
Yeah, we mentioned that before we started recording too. We're like, I think this is gonna be a quick episode because I feel like there really isn't a lot to talk about here.
Yeah.
They tease some stuff, with Rose and her connection to the island. That's about it. We do find out that Charlie and Mr. Echo are building a church,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Called it.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. What you should know is after this episode, the show went on break for about 3 to 4 weeks.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's one of the things that was kind of frustrating about Lost. Like they would always take these like month-long breaks, and I guess they want to keep editing the rest of the episodes and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But seeing that this is episode 19 of like a 23, 24 episode season, I think they're kind of banking on the fact of like when the show comes back, they're just going to be ramping up to the season finale.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, these past two episodes, at least the Hurley episode, his story was moving the whole episode.
Mm-hmm.
He was the whole episode. This one just feels like there is no main story. We're just kind of like bopping in and out of different places around the island. And
Yeah.
I mean, technically, I guess they do have 3 acts and things like that. It's just, it didn't really feel like it.
Yeah. Yeah. It really
So
didn't.
Jack and Kate, they keep doing the will they, won't they? They're almost going to freaking kiss at the end, man. You can
Mm-hmm.
tell. And then Michael shows up. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, I don't know. I just think they're both not right for each other.
Oh, okay. So who is?
Nobody.
Nobody? Oh,
Kate's
Sam.
Look, bro.
They're all a bunch of sexy, sweaty people trying to survive, man.
Doesn't matter.
We gotta find them someone. We gotta find them love.
Yeah, but they also got to work on themselves because Kate just keeps going back and forth.
That's a good point.
Kate is, fully hooking up with Sawyer, but then the second she doesn't get attention from Jack, it's like, oh, okay.
That's true.
Now I'm gonna be, flirty and try and show off my shooting prowess as we're caught up in a net.
Literally caught in a net. Yes.
Yeah,
I loved it.
yeah.
And they're like bickering and like teasing each other over who's the better shot. And I'm like, all right.
Okay, guys. Yeah, It's great. Get over it. This isn't a sexy hospital, right?
Oh, yeah. But they have sexy hospital dialogue because she even says, I'm sorry for kissing you. And he takes the sexy doctor beat and he looks at her. I'm not. Oh, I had to write that in my notes. I was like, damn.
Your Matthew Fox impression is just spot on. You need to be a celebrity impersonator, but only if that celebrity is Matthew Fox.
I'm only going to impersonate Matthew Fox from now on. So, quick little BTS facts, not the band, but the events of this episode are loosely based on the life of L. Scott Caldwell, who plays Rose. Her husband had cancer and died a year after marrying her.
Whoa.
Yeah. So this kind of this makes me want to kind of like dive in because I don't think I asked you this question. You're not going to have the answer because it's like hypothetical, but I wonder in the writing process, what kind of conversations the writers are having with the actors.
I want to know that too.
Especially, this, like, I feel like they're like, hey, we're going to write the story for Rose, can we do this and stuff? Obviously, I guess she was okay with it. But I'm curious with the whole Hurley story, because Jorge Garcia, he's a large, overweight man, and they wrote that into his character. So as writers, like, I just want to know, like, did they talk to him about this storyline, especially when, because they've made mention of it and it's been brought up several times, his weight. But like last week's episode, they really get into the psychology of it, of him using food as a form of punishment, and that's why he can't stop eating. I have to assume that they talked to him before. They didn't just write it out.
Yeah.
Oh, here's your new episode. Especially because they were teasing it throughout the season. So they're like, hey, are you cool with this? Or this is the route we're thinking, just so you don't think we're writing you these scenes because you're the largest person in the cast.
Yeah.
We wanted to, that's the kind of stuff I'm curious about.
You're right. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
I was hoping you did. No, yeah.
But I mean, I think they do like this is, I don't know if this is going to sound like a diss, but it's like anybody can write a doctor story,
Ooh. Shonda Rhimes just fell over.
Look, I'm just saying that like we've had so many Jack-centric episodes, and it's like, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, like once we just say, oh, hey, we want to do like this thing, like, okay, go do your research, whatever. But it's like you can come up with a doctor story. I don't think they're asking Matthew Fox like, hey, is it cool if we do this, if we do that? Like, I think for a good portion of the main cast, they probably just have their stories written out,
Mm-hmm.
But also this is the second season, and I feel like, after the phenomenal success of the first, yeah, I think there was maybe a little more leeway where they could be like, hey, we want to like write this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it cool with you? If we go this direction with your character, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or do you have any concerns about, the direction that we're going to go? And I think that's pretty valid. They're not adapting anything, like this is a wholly original work. So like, I feel like there can be that sort of, back and forth between the actors and the writers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like honestly don't know.
Yeah, it's a very bizarre season because we mentioned it before how it started off really strong and then slowed down in the middle, and this third like act of the season is getting better but still fairly slow. If you look at the first season as a whole, everyone had their moments, everyone had their time to shine, but this episode seems like it's less ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has like their episode just like the first season, but that's it.
Yeah.
Like we don't get a lot of like the background and B plots as we did in the first season.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's really weird.
You know what this feels like? This feels like the ending of an act. There's 6 seasons of Lost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This feels like the ending of Act 1.
Mm-hmm.
Like if this was a book, it would be 3 books, and this is the end of the first one.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's like we're solving stuff that were hinted at in the first season, like we're finally getting some through lines. I feel like everybody's storylines from the first season are like sort of coming to a head, especially with their flashbacks. It's like, I don't know how many more flashbacks we can go, like just with some of these characters, where it's like, all right, we've seen a lot of Locke, we've seen a lot of Jack, like we're kind of catching up with Kate and Sawyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there are only a couple more people that I feel like we could really, get through. So yeah, like that, like it feels like this is the end of Act 1 for the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is kind of interesting how it's like, yeah, there's not really, this doesn't feel as ensemble as the rest of the series has been.
Yeah. And as someone who has seen all of Lost, although it's been a long time, it's really interesting because looking back, I can see where Lost is a 3-act structure. Like, okay, it ends here, and ends here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's at the same time, because it's ensemble and they do so much stuff with flashbacks, it's even a little harder than that. And I think we'll see that as we start going further onto the series. And I think we can even talk a little bit about it once we finish this season, like in the last episode of season 2, we can talk about how more on that, like how do we think this is how does this season make a better end to act one than the first season did? Things like that. But yeah, I mean, this show is just, it's wild the way the story structure is. And I think a lot of it is the behind the scenes. It is the studios. It is the showrunners trying to, control their own content. Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know. It's a little bit of everything, kind of the way the Expanse did, but at least that you can tell, like, well, we didn't have enough money to adapt the whole, like the first book into one season. So we kind of split it. And then we kind of split the second season into another book, but it's not the full season. It kind of feels like that,
Yeah.
Well, okay. So let's, who are you going to pick for MVPs?
Yeah, it's tough because it's like, I don't know.
I thought Rose and Bernard, the actors who played them, I thought they did great. But I also feel like we have before in the past have skipped people. I feel like we didn't get anything new from them. I felt like it was a bit of a step back for Bernard because we never really knew enough about him, but we really liked him. And then to see him play like this version and see him in the flashbacks, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, if I had to give it to anybody, I would give it to Rose. Yeah, because like again, like there's not a lot that we haven't seen before, but her moments of vulnerability, like I think those went a long way. Where she she kind of has to refuse Bernard his proposal, because her cancer's back, like that.
Yeah.
And it's such a romantic thing, it was such a romantic moment. It was a beautiful moment. And like, yeah, that hit me like a ton of bricks, so it's like that was a good performance. And then also her sort of like resigning herself, like towards the end, to say that like, I don't want the last, like, I don't want the little bit of time that I have with my husband to be him trying to find a way to save me. It's like, she just wants to be in these moments with him. And like, man, that hit too. Like, yeah. So yeah, like it was like there were small enough moments that I think just deserve that recognition. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to Rose.
I think we'll leave it there with her. I like the guy who played Bernard. I don't remember his name, but yeah, I did feel like it was kind of a step back for the character. I will say this: that proposal is still better than Locke's proposal. And Bernard, she would have said yes if you had mariachis.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely. You can't say no when there's mariachis. It's just, yeah.
Right?
The intimidation factor alone. Oh, man. Well, okay, so let's wrap it up with some predictions.
Ooh.
Especially after they did talk about, a little bit of Rose talking to that guy and now finding out that she's cured while here. Yeah. What are you thinking?
Well, one, I feel like Michael's gonna come out of his, whatever, and he's gonna be not the Michael that we fully recognize. He went into that jungle and came out a changed man. I'm gonna say the island is building and selecting its members of the Crash to form its own Justice League.
Interesting. Okay.
We already got Rose. We already got Locke. Potentially, maybe have Walt, but he's been kidnapped, so like his status is in limbo.
That's very interesting when Jack basically told Henry his plan. He's like, we're gonna trade you for Walt. And Henry's not talking to anyone. He's not eating or drinking water. But the one thing he says when he looks at Jack, he says, they will never give you Walt. It's like, ooh, but why? Why? Yeah. Well, maybe we'll find out next week, Sam, as we talk about season 2 episode 20, Two for the Road. Michael's back and he has news about the others. And that's all I'll say.
Cool.
Yeah. So, all right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning back in. We're back on Lost now, and I think we're just going to make a break for it for these last couple episodes. We're going to finish off season 2. So join us again next week as we talk Lost. As always, you can find me on Twitter at _Matt Jimenez and Instagram at Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Reel, that's REEL, Texas Weirdo.
All right, Sam, until next time, get lost.
Get lost.